Hello, rugby fans. I'm Joe Harrington. With me, as always, is Philip Bendon in the UK. Now, we told you last week we weren't going to record. Well, guess what? I decided to come on down to the Flow Sports offices here in beautiful Austin, Texas. So I said, hey, Philip, why don't we just go ahead and record? Because after this, I'm taking some vacation. But the real reason I came back, Philip, is we got transfer news today, and we had some transfer news last week. Walk us through some of these big old stories.
Yes, Joe. So the two big ones today. The first one, which is a blockbuster, Tomaso Menoncelo of Benetton, arguably the best centre in the world, in my opinion, or certainly in the top three in the inside centres, has signed for Stade Toulouse. So he will be linking up with his international teammate Ange Capuazzo and Antoine Dupont, of course, and all the gang there. So yeah, Toulouse, the rich keep getting richer. Toulouse thought, well, listen, we've already got Santiago Chocobaras of Los Pumas. Peter Aki's gone back to New Zealand, so they're replacing him with Tomaso Menoncelo, who can play both inside and outside centre, and again is just world class. So that's the big headline transfer of today. And there's also one for Irish fans out there that Leinster Rugby's fly half Kieran Frawley has signed with Connacht this week, which is huge for both Frawley and for Connacht. So he'll link back up with Stuart Lancaster there. That is a real key area that Connacht are lacking at the moment, is a really good Irish fly half, with Jack Carty being towards the end of his career. Josh Ioane, the Kiwi, hasn't quite gelled in as much as they'd like, so that's a big signing for them. And Jordan Larmer of Leinster is also rumoured to be going down to Connacht, so we shall see.
More talent in Conic, I'm all for it. Man, do I want the Westerners just to become a power? You know what I want the Westerners to be? I want the Westerners to become the new Toulouse.
Oh,
Because, my God, how's Toulouse going to lose any matches moving forward? Are you kidding me?
no, it's an absolute joke. And you know what's funny? We talk about Connacht. So I'm actually going to Connacht on Saturday. I'll be flying into Knock Airport. For anyone who's ever been there, it's a tumultuous landing spot on top of a mountain, and there is a big statue of Jesus as you land, which is very apt. So, but yeah, funny enough, I was going back through the history books because we were talking about when did Toulouse last lose a Champions Cup match. So I just went back through all the results. I forget that Connacht beat Toulouse less than 10 years ago. So, I mean, it just shows how much the world can flip. Come on, Connacht, let's get some of that sweet Dexcom money and just sign everybody up.
Yeah, I saw that transfer for Toulouse, and the first thing I thought is, I mean, they still, I think, are probably going to be trailing Leinster for the most top 100 players, which says quite a bit about
Right.
Leinster there. But at the same time, it's like we have been talking about, Benetton being really good, and a big part of that is that guy that's leaving. And we talk about how good Italy is, and it's because of that guy. And now he's on Toulouse. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, Joe. And when you think that, his centre partner Ignacio Breck signed for Toulon last season, so he's already in France. So Benetton are losing what was the glue of their squad there, really, with that world class centre partnership. So look, there's plenty of talent coming through, but none of them are as good as Tomaso Menoncelo. But yeah, so Toulouse will now have the two best Italian players in Ange Capuazzo and Tomaso Menoncelo, which is very interesting. There has been other murmurings of different transfers going on. I know this one's a little bit old, but the rumour from Munster, as a Munster fan, is that Springbok hooker Marnus van der Merwe will be signing for them, which is a big position of need for Munster. But it does mean that Jean Klein might now be leaving, given he's no longer Irish eligible, having played for the Springboks. So, yeah, plenty going on. And then we saw in the transfer news around the Premiership, another big one, George Hendy of the Northampton Saints. It sounds pretty confirmed that he will be going to Harlequins. So that's a big signing for Harlequins. Big blow for the Saints, but they've got plenty of talent coming through the ranks there too.
What's the analogy here of someone who likes NFL football over in the UK, Monticello joining Toulouse? What help American rugby fans figure that out? What is the equivalent there?
Joe, because we're such good friends, I don't want to even talk about Joe Burrow potentially leaving the Bengals. But I think it would be Saquon Barkley getting off the Giants and going to the Philadelphia Eagles would be as good as I go. A really important player who, in a perfect system, will destroy teams. So I think Saquon Barkley, off the top of my head, feels like the most apt sort of comparison there for me.
See, I was going to go when the Bengals trade the eighth or ninth pick of the draft to Minnesota for Justin Jefferson.
Oh,
See,
oh,
that's what I was going to go with. See,
oh.
that's
So you just have three number one receivers just tearing. Don't even worry about an O line. Just Joey get the ball out in like 2 seconds, a second.
you don't need an O line when you've got those three guys. The
Could you
ball's coming
imagine?
out quickly anyway.
It's great to see Joe Burrow and Joe Harrington are now the GM of the Bengals. So that's good to co-GMs.
Well, you know who I'd want to be? I mean, look, I've already told you, my GM position is going to be with the the Sterling Flow
Yeah,
Rugby team
yeah.
there. We're
How
going to
does
have a
Tim feel
budget
about
like
that?
Toulouse.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love that first signing, Finn Russell. Perfect. Off you go.
Oh, yeah. Uh, okay, so yeah, big transfer news. So let's explain this for some of the for some of the fans that are used to like NFL and MLB and NBA free agent signing. We haven't talked about this on the podcast, but there's obviously a lot of different leagues. What, five major leagues, six you count MLR, and then there's other leagues in South America. But like the transfer portal. I'm sorry, transfer season is kind of all over the place. A lot of these teams announced that they're changing clubs in the middle of the season, which that does not happen in U.S. sports. So explain the transfer season for folks and when we're going to see more of these.
Yeah, Joe. So the way it works in rugby is that players don't sign contracts per season necessarily. They will sign up to a set date. So you talk about a big re-signing. The biggest re-signing in World Rugby right now is Sasha Feinberg-Ngomazulu has committed to the DHL Stormers through 2029. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that he will be locked into that contract, which I guess in US sports, players get out of contracts too. But it does mean that he could sign till January in 2029, and in the second half he could go join another club. There's no set transfer window. Now, it has been discussed previously, and personally I'd like to see it because I think from a media standpoint it'd be really exciting if your team was in the running. If you played the first 8 to 10 games of the season and you go, oh gosh, we really need a big tight head prop, let's get one signed. That would be really cool if you had a December window and then perhaps like an April window again. But in rugby, it doesn't necessarily work like that. In recent times, I think of Blair Kinghorn leaving Edinburgh to join Toulouse, and that was mid-season. It was meant to be a short-term deal. He's now obviously stayed there and become a real star with them and elevated his game massively. So in rugby terms, basically, you sign a contract to a date. So it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be at the start of a season or an end of a season. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that in U.S. sports, in particular, you sign through the end of the season, so you don't uh, become a free agent in the middle unless you get released or get cut on waivers. I think that this is probably a bigger question about the thing that we talk about quite a bit on this podcast, and that is the sinking of the rugby season, right? Like, you could sign through the end of the year if all the seasons ended the same. But, obviously, you got Super Rugby that starts kind of in the middle of the European club season. So I think that probably just goes back to unifying the rugby calendar, right?
100%. And then listen, I've heard discussions of let's get the South to link up with us in the North. My preference would be that we move our season to when the South are playing in their winter, purely based on the weather factor up here. I do find that having grown up in South Africa, the weather's a lot better in the winter than our winters up here in the UK and Ireland. So I would love that lining up of perhaps moving things to line up with the Southern Hemisphere season as opposed to the other. I know that might not necessarily be popular in this part of the world, but irrespective, that the seasons need to line up. Rassi Erasmus obviously came out and said, well, we should just move the Rugby Championship to be at the same time as the Six Nations. In reality, it's a no-brainer. When you do that, there will be far more commercial opportunities for leagues to be able to sell their rights and sell everything like that and build things up. And as you say, when it comes to a transfer season, it'll make a lot more sense, right? Because you can get all the seasons are playing at the same time. You go, look, there's a guy down in the Southern Hemisphere not really getting much game time in Super Rugby. Can he come up and join us through to the end of the season, which does happen a little bit. You look at, Rico Ioane's now with Leinster on a sabbatical. But I think you might see it going both ways. You might see Northern Hemisphere players going down to Super Rugby, which is only a good thing too. So you could find that it's that kind of tide that lifts all boats, really.
So essentially, what you're saying is Kalen Doris is going to be playing from Wana Pacifica.
Yeah, as long as he's not playing against Munster at any point, I don't mind. So that works well for me. He always torments us. Yeah, well, exactly. That would be cool. Could you imagine Artie and Caelan in the same back row? Jeepers.
Let's
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it.
Let's mix in Peter Steph to toy there, and then you're
Could you
unstoppable back row.
imagine? Could you imagine Monticello playing on the same team with Antoine Dupont?
Oh yeah, yeah. Could you imagine? Could you, Joe? How outlandish? Could you imagine? Yeah,
Well,
that. Yeah.
okay. I got a bit of bad news for you, Philip. If you're talking about Kalen Doris playing Munster, I got a bit of bad news.
Please no,
He's
Joe.
playing Munster this weekend.
He will be. I'm sure. I'm sure he will. After we tonked them earlier in the season.
Derby week continues in the URC. Absolutely love this like 3 week stretch of just so many derbies. Um, I was writing earlier today in a piece that's going to be out on Wednesday for our 3 matches to watch, and I said I'm not saying Leinster Munster is a bigger derby than Springboks All Blacks. But I mean, there are two club derbies I think that could say they're the biggest rivalry in all of rugby. This is one of them. I mean, I think that this obviously doesn't have the international appeal of it, but what does this rivalry mean to you as a lifelong Irish rugby fan and a lifelong Munster fan? What does it mean to you, Leinster Munster?
Yeah, I think because Munster started when the professional era came in, Munster were the more successful side, right? So they won two Heineken Cups in '06 and '08, and Leinster were the side that always bottled it, never quite got there. Ironically, kind of similar to now, despite having plenty of quality, right? It then firmly shifted as you kind of expect when Leinster started getting their act together. They really streamlined their processes. They became the big dogs. They are a big dog in Europe. Thus, for a Munster fan, beating Leinster means more than anything else because you're knocking off a team that really all the odds are skewed in their favour from the player talent standpoint, the financial standpoint. Probably you could argue from probably a bitter Munster fan that that if it comes down to a 50-50 decision between a Munster player getting selected or a Leinster player getting selected in the national team, under Andy Farrell, it's been the Leinster player that gets selected, and rightly so. They've been very successful, but I think really what this rivalry boils down to is that we can all become best of friends when we're Irish fans, but when we're supporting our provinces, there's a very definite split, and it's a healthy rivalry, I would say. I don't think any rivalry online is healthy, but if a Munster and Leinster fans are in the pub, they'll be giving each other plenty of stick, but it'll always be friendly. And I think the players feel the same way. I think James Lowe had a very funny quote of, I don't hate any of the like he was talking about the Ulster players specifically, but I hate Ulster. And I think it's the same as Munster. I don't think any of them hate each other, but I think there's just that ingrained. And it's you look down in the Southern Hemisphere and Bulls Stormers, Bulls Sharks, or you look at in New Zealand, Canterbury and Auckland. There's big rivalries, and the common denominator a lot of the time is that it's a capital city against another big city, and they feel like the smaller brother. So, yeah, for me, for Munster, I would much rather. It sounds terrible. I'd much rather watch a good Munster Leinster match than probably an Ireland Test match. That's how much it means to me as a Munster fan.
Yeah, I think the analogy I would put it is for the longest time you have Alabama in college football in the U.S. and they're just extremely dominant and they're really good. They're the class of the SEC. That was Munster at the start of it,
Mm,
and then you always had Georgia, who always had all the resources and were good, but were never as good
sure.
as Leinster. And then all of a sudden it flipped, and now Georgia's the class of the SEC because they're now utilizing all of the resources. It reminds me of Munster and Leinster because Leinster is the club team in Dublin, the largest.
Mm,
I mean, I think they're the largest city in Ireland, right? I mean,
sure. Yeah,
it's yeah,
by miles. Yeah,
and yeah, and it's the big city in there, and they're now leveraging their status of being in Dublin. So it kind of reminds me of that, and that is to say, I mean, Alabama's still really good, right? They're still winning championships, but
sure.
now the other team in the SEC is absolutely dominant.
Well, exactly, and ironically, for all of the disparity in terms of playing resources and financial resources, Munster and Leinster have the same amount of trophies. Since in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, when Leinster last won a Champions Cup was in 2018, from memory, off the top of my head. So really, there isn't. If you were to put down this team has this squad, this resources, and listen, getting to Champions Cup finals is a big thing, and it's very impressive. And really, Kieran Frawley's drop goal goes 3 inches to the left as opposed to 3 inches to the right, and they do have a Champions Cup. That's how tight the margins are. But when you boil it down, both teams have the same amount of titles. So I love your Alabama analogy there, and I would also go a little bit further. Of Nick Saban steps away from Alabama, they drop off. Kirby, is it Kirby Smart of Georgia? You look at Leo Cullen's done really well with stabilising Leinster, but really, are they the same forces they were when Joe Schmidt or Michael Cheika were there? Not really, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's interesting times. To be honest with you, ironically, even though they haven't played that well to start the season, I actually, over the last couple of weeks, have started feeling stronger and stronger about Leinster in the Champions Cup, just based on there's not really the pressure, because I don't think anyone actually expects them to win it this season. But what they do very well over this last sort of 5, 6 game block is they suffocate teams. So it might not be the most attractive rugby. It might not be the Leinster rugby of old. They're still sprinkling a brilliant play, but they are such a tough team to beat, and I think they are going to peak at the right time of the season. Now, do I think Munster and Leinster could win titles this year? I certainly do. I think Munster are capable of winning the URC, albeit, as we've said consistently, the DHL Stormers for us are the top pick on that competition, and you've picked them for the Champions Cup. So I think we both feel quite strongly that they'll be the URC champions. But of the Irish Challenge, Munster and Leinster are both certainly there. But there's a very interesting wrinkle this week when they meet again. Of course, Munster beat them earlier in the season, as we said. But if Munster beat them again now, that becomes pretty sort of insurmountable for Leinster to catch them, because I think they'll drop back to about 14 points behind Munster. So, that really puts a dent in Leinster. It would mean they would likely go on the road to the Stormers if they got to a semi-final, or to Munster in a semi-final. Of course, Glasgow are there too. Let's not dismiss Glasgow. They have a real shot at it too.
Yeah, I can't emphasize your point. I think it's really key is that Leinster was so good last year from the start of the season to the end. And they won the URC, but they fell short in the Champions Cup. But their peak happened too early, and I think the fact that they've gone through a little bit of a rut here. Uh, I mean, they pulled above 500 this past week, but they were 500 in the URC for the longest time, and um, they left a lot to be desired in the Champions Cup. But that is to say, the window for this team becoming really good is there. Whereas last year, I didn't really see they were so good. You didn't really see how much better they could actually get right throughout the
True.
season.
Yeah.
So now they're gonna probably peak right when they need to, and they're probably gonna look like that dominant team that we saw all throughout last year.
Yeah, and ironically, I was looking back on some of our old stuff. Prior to that Northampton game, our power ranking system actually had Northampton ranked higher than Leinster, despite the league form was bizarre. And I was like, this can't be right. And I still published it and got a lot of abuse for it. But then the Saints beat Leinster, and in that crazy game. The one thing I would say about Leinster is that, they've got the pack to definitely compete and probably dominate in Europe. They can go toe to anyone, toe to toe with anyone. The biggest question mark is who's going to be their 10 when it comes down to it. I've been so impressed with Harry Byrne to start the season. Sam Prendergast has plenty of upside. It's so obvious, but he's just not quite there yet. So, that's a big question mark. For me, Kieran Frawley's the odd man out, as we said, and he's obviously going to Connacht. But I've loved seeing him play 12 this year, and I'd love to see him continually do that with whoever plays 10, because he takes so much pressure off them with his kicking game and distribution game. So there is question marks about what is Leinster's best combination. And I think Rico Ioane's been very good since he came, and I don't think he's as good of a signing as Jordy Barrett. But ironically, it might actually yield a better result than with Jordy Barrett, because he might just slot in on the wing or slot in at that outside centre if Gary Ringrose is injured. So, yeah, interesting times.
All right, moving on. I'm gonna throw this at you here, and I should give the audience here a heads up. Usually, I send Philip what we're gonna talk about. I didn't do that because we didn't think we were gonna record today, but we were like, okay, let's record if you're available. Let's do it. So I'm gonna tell you this, Phil. My club of the week, not my team of the week. You handle that with the players. My club of the week, I'm going top 14, and I'm going, man, I'm going to butcher this, and the French audience is going to be so mad at me. Per, Perpan.
Oh yeah,
Perpignan?
Perpignan. Yeah, Perpignan.
Perpignan.
Yeah, there we
Perpignan.
go. Just call them USAP. Easy.
USAP. I'm going with them. Look,
There we
they
go.
won their first match this past weekend.
For
You know
sure.
what? Shouts to them. And they beat Clermont. And here's the thing. USAP nearly beat Poe at Poe in November. They only lost by like 4 points, right?
Hmm.
Um, they're obviously a team that is stuck in this perpetual fighting to stay up, fighting
Hmm.
off relegation. Um, they're one of my matches of the week because they're playing Toulon, and look, I'm not here to tell you that they're not going to get slaughtered by Toulon on the road, but they this is the first time they've won back-to-back matches since the summer, and they beat Toulouse in the last round of the regular season, and then they won their relegation match to stay there. But that's my team of the week, just because they won their first match. I didn't think they were going to win a match all season because I don't think that they played Montauban yet, which that's the team that got promoted. But the bigger conversation is shouts to USAP, but I wanted to bring it up because my segue here is what is going on with our Michelin star team in France? What is going on with Clermont? What is
Yeah.
up with them?
Yeah, couple of I mean, Perpignan are a really interesting club to go back on just on that, and I'll get to Clermont. Back in the mid 2000s, again as a Munster fan, Perpignan were a side you didn't want to draw. They were contenders in the Heineken Cup, contenders in the top 14, and it's sad to see such a great club really drop off. They've got a really interesting links in terms of where their positioning are. They've also got a club in Barcelona, so they get some Spanish talent coming through there too. So interesting. On the Clermont side of things, Clermont, I've been doing this deep dive. Obviously, we've been talking about we're going to do a top 100 breakthrough players of the year list that we'll talk about a little bit closer to the time. And I changed my criteria a little bit. I said less than 15 tests rather than 10 because there's some pretty good players there and under 25 years old. And Clermont have a lot of very, very good young players coming through. Now, the problem, I don't know Christophe Urias. I've never had any interactions with him, of course, the Clermont coach. But what I have seen with Christophe Urias is a lot of the time he's very good at getting a club to a certain point and making them competitive, but then taking them to that next level he doesn't necessarily do, which you've seen previously. So I do think they're ripe for a potential coaching change, as I guess every podcast talking about that. But they've got Baptiste Janot at scrum
They
half,
can
who's
hire Gregor Townsend.
yeah, well, there you go. Gregor sounds like he's got his hands full with Newcastle, Scotland. He's going to be everywhere. But they have got a player called Baptiste Janot, who's I believe he's the club captain now, the young scrum half, only 21, 22. Many believe he's the next version of Antoine Dupont coming through, and he's such a phenomenal player. Axel Guillard, who scored, I think, a double against Saracens, the young fullback, who's 19. So there is a lot of quality across the board there. I think really they're kind of stuck between two stools at the moment of having lots of very old players and lots of very young players and not very many in the middle in their prime. So I think really they're a side that when you look at clubs that are quite like that, there's going to be a bit of a spike and a drop throughout a season. And I think they're just one of those teams at the moment that are yo-yoing. And again, I'm not trying to disparage Christophe Urios. It's just from what I've seen over the years. He's very good at getting a team to a set point, but then maybe not taking them over the top. So there are going to be some very interesting coaching candidates across the top 14 this summer. So you never know who could get that job. But if I was going to be looking to be a head coach, that would be a job I'd love to have. You've got great history, a world-class stadium, lovely restaurants, as you know, Joe, and a really talented young squad. But I think at the moment, this season's a write-off. Their big goal should be, can we get into Champions Cup qualification for next season? And if you're there, then can you get into Le Barrage and play in the knockouts in the top 14? But at present time, I would feel not particularly confident that they're going to win any of the Champions Cup games this year.
Yeah, I mean, just USAP big win, but at the same time, like I think every team that's trying to get in the Champions Cup pool in the top 14 is counting on uh is it counting on winning the away matches against Montauban and USAP, and so for them not to do it, it really puts a doubt. I think that they can get there to the Champions Cup because Clermont almost always gets the Champions Cup. That's why this is so stunning, and of course they are 6-0-6 now. It's not like they're losing record, but as we know in club rugby, it doesn't matter really about the wins and losses. It matters about the points, and they're really low on the points.
Yeah, you're bang on, Joe. And on Perpignan, and I'll come back again. I'll come back to Clermont. Perpignan actually have got a very good squad, and they've got players like Jamie Ritchie, who was a Scotland captain not very long ago, Posalo Tuolangi, and there's a lot of talk about he's Manu Tuolangi's nephew, he's Henry's son. There's a lot of talk of him switching from second row to prop to try and fill the void left by Winnie Antonio when he does step aside for France, and he's a big bruiser of a boy. He's only 19 or 20 and he's 150 odd kilos. So that'll be interesting to see if they switch. So there is quality there. I think Tomaso Allen's there too. There's a lot of quality in that team. Actually, even Jordan Pataya, the Wallabies in that squad. So they should be doing better than they are, and I think they will get better as the season goes on. I don't think they'll go down. I think Montauban will go down, and maybe Perpignan will have a playoff match, but that'll be interesting. On Clermont, it's again really tricky to see where they go to from here. But like you said, there is a lot of quality, and if we were to tie it to the NFL, you look at Mike Tomlin has completed yet another winning season. Clermont are like that. They're one of those really consistently good teams that actually just don't win very often.
Philip, we got one rule in this podcast, and that is don't talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay?
I'm so sorry, Joe. I'm so sorry. Such an oversight.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think that that Clermont does remind me a lot of the Steelers in that, they're just always really good. And that's why it's stunning when they're like 500 on the record of the losing matches. And yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, bringing up that team from the hills of Western Pennsylvania.
Your favorite team.
Okay. I usually am way more derogatory to the sports teams of the city of Pittsburgh. Look, the Three Rivers in Pennsylvania is very pretty. I have been there. I just don't like any of your sports teams.
That's fair, Joe.
Okay, so here's another surprising thing to me, Philip, is we have a weekend where we get Leinster Munster, we get all the derbies in Wales, we get Toulouse and La Rochelle in the top 14, we get the Italian derby. None of those are my match of the week in there. Because how can you not look at Bath and Northampton playing this week and not say that is the biggest match in club rugby this week? Break it down. What are we going to see from that match?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is a phenomenal head-to-head. And I think what's really interesting is this will be the first time that Bath are going to come up against a team in the Prem this season who can match them physically in the Saints. JJ Van Amesh has been such a big signing for the Saints. He's just so powerful, the big South African lock. He is a Springbok in the making. There's zero doubt in my mind. He's very much like their answer to Will Skelton and just a big lump of a human being. Bath, obviously their power game, very impressive. Shredded Newcastle this week. Ben Spencer is playing the best rugby I've ever seen him play. I mean, he finished off a beautiful try. He had an absolute peach of a long ball over the top to Tom de Glanville, which was just such a spectacular pass. If you're on your phone now, go on to FloRugby's social media. On Thursday, it'll be a little Christmas present for you, and we'll have that reel coming out. It's a stunner. I think really where this one will be won and lost, and I think it's whether the Saints can live with Bath when they start rolling off their bench in terms of the forward pack, and I'm pretty confident they can, just because of the depth they have in that squad. These are by far the two best teams in the Prem at the moment for me, and whoever takes this obviously goes to the top of the table from memory, and really I think whoever takes this one gets a big psychological win over the other team that they're going to face, because I think this is the Premiership final in waiting. The only other team at present who I think could get to the Prem final are Bristol, but I think these two teams are just so far ahead of each other. I think what will be interesting too is the battle of the tens. Finn Smith is another player in phenomenal form, playing really well, coming up against the maestro in Finn Russell, who again Finn plays his best game when he's got a second distributor like he does with Scotland and Blair Kinghorn. He now has Sandy Carreras at Bath, who's I would argue probably maybe better than our boy Blair at the moment. So you've got plenty of talent there, and the Saints are similar in that they've got Finn Smith, and I think Fraser Dingwall is really underrated as a distributor there. So lots, just battles galore.
We got fins to the left, we got fins to the right, and there's the only rugby ball in town this week.
That's it.
Shout out to Mr. Jimmy Buffett. So here's my hot take on this match. Okay, I'm not going to say the same thing for Bath because we saw that Bath went to Toulon and lost in Champions Cup. But I
Mm-hmm.
will say this about Northampton. I don't know what the ranking numbers will look like, but if Northampton goes to Bath and wins, tell me what club is better than them this season if they go to Bath and win.
I would say Union Bordeaux-Bègles maybe, and Toulouse. If I was to put, if I was to put, I don't think that they're better than them, but I think if I was to put them on a neutral field, who would I feel better about winning? I would still back the two big top 14 teams just over the last fortnight. But jeepers, that Saints team fear no one. I mean, they are so good. What they did to Poe was very impressive and completely derailed Poe's season, you know?
Poe, who, by the way, is leading the top 14 this week. They came back and they played Montauban and they killed them. But,
Yeah.
Northampton, I won't say they wiped the floor with them, but they won in
Yeah.
Toulouse. And, yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing I would say, and I know I can't be accused of bias because I'm a Munster fan for anyone who thinks this. I do think there's very little between Toulouse, UBB, Leinster, and Northampton and Bath. Bath are really interesting for me because I think Bath, I would still say, are probably the favourites for the Prem. But between them and the Saints in the Champions Cup, I feel more confident about the Saints because they've been there and done that. The Challenge Cup is nothing compared to the Champions Cup. Let's be very real in terms of the quality on that. So Bath still haven't proven it in the Champions Cup, and they're by no means have they got an easy run either. Because I think I said it before. I feel very confident that Munster will go down and beat Toulon. And especially having seen what Toulon put on tape again, like I feel pretty confident about that. And Bath still, I think, have to play Cast away, which is just such a hard game. People don't understand. Yeah. Cast, as a Munster fan, it's like a rite of passage. You have to go and play them there. They never lose at home. So, yeah.
Northampton wins this week, and they're able to continue winning. Their next Champions Cup match, I believe the week of January 9th, is against Bordeaux, and that'll be the biggest match of pool play thus far. We say that a lot, but it's because it changes every week. Yeah. That'll be the match.
I think, Joe, that's the final time we're going to change that. That's the biggest match of all the pool series because you got last year's finalists. And yeah, I mean, after the way that final ended, there was the fight post-match and, all the stuff that came out and what was said and things like that. There will be a bit of bad blood there, so that adds an extra layer. I think this is going to be just such a cracker. And whoever wins that obviously tops the pool and likely gets top spot overall now that Toulouse have lost. So that would guarantee, a home run all the way through. So, it's likely going to be them and the Stormers or Leinster. So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. And while we're on the topic, sorry, I know we talked about Perpignan winning back to back. How about them Dragons? The Dragons thumped Connacht like relentless. It was like men against boys, and that Connacht team was a good Connacht team. The Dragons have now back to back wins too. So there we go.
And let's just set the bar here. I mean, the Dragons have been one of the worst club teams in rugby this year. To do that to my Westerners.
I'll tell you that I think the Dragons. I'm not going to be stupid and say the Dragons are going to win the URC. I think the Dragons have a real chance of going a little bit of a run here, pushing up towards that top 8. There's such a big gap at the moment between the top sort of 4 teams in the URC and the rest in terms of points. The Dragons, you never know. A couple of Welsh derbies. I think they're better than the Scarlets and Ospreys at the moment, even though the Scarlets beat Cardiff this week. But that's just one of those things that seems to always happen. The Scarlets always seem to beat Cardiff. So, yeah.
This is 3D dimensional podcasting because we're going to do our picks here. And so let's segue the first match we have of the weekend at 10 a.m. on Friday. Look, it's December 26th. You're done with Christmas. We know y'all ain't working, all right? 10 a.m. on the East Coast. We have those very same Dragons going to Cardiff Wells to play Cardiff. Quietly, the story of the year in the URC is Cardiff, where they are on the table. I think a third this week, right? This is like a legitimate fun match. People should be really excited about this. Um,
Yeah,
who's winning that one?
I never thought I would say this. I think the Dragons are going to go. I think they've got the bit between their teeth. I think they're going to overturn Cardiff in a real shock, which will drop Cardiff way down the URC table. They'll shoot the Dragons up. There's coming into this, I wouldn't have said this before the past fortnight, but just the intensity that the Dragons played with. They were so accurate. They were so fast. They were so good. Rio Dyer played the best club game I can remember him playing. Like, there was just brilliant. Angus O'Brien was on fire. There was just talent everywhere. Tinas de Beer played very well. I really think the Dragons will shock Cardiff straight after Christmas. So, yeah, give me the Dragons in this one.
There we go. Hot take. I'm taking the home team. I'm taking Cardiff, but I love it. And I should say this: the Scarlets play the Ospreys later in that day.
Hmm.
Rugby fans, please watch Welsh Rugby Club matches now. Take advantage of it because we may never see this again. We may never see two matches on Boxing Day between all the Welsh clubs. We only have a few more weeks. We don't know what's going to happen with the future of Welsh rugby. Philip talked about it last week. The Ospreys lost two of their best players to Prem teams. Take advantage. Got to watch these matches now because it's not going to be like this in the future.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Joe. And on the Ospreys losing talent, I've got pretty good confirmation that their fly half Dan Edwards will be going to the Leicester Tigers. So that would be another blow. I think I don't want to. You can speculate all you want, but I think if you were to follow the breadcrumbs, I think it's the Ospreys that will be gone, and you'll be left with Cardiff Scarlets and Dragons in some shape or form, or an amalgamation of the Ospreys and Scarlets. It's pretty sad overall. I know economically it makes more sense for them to have three teams, but four teams is important long term in my opinion. But again, I'm not a Welsh rugby fan. I don't have enough knowledge, and for any Welsh rugby fans that are watching this, let us know what you think. Is three better than four, or is it a stopgap? Because there was discussion of two teams, which I just think would be silly for a nation like Wales, who have so many good rugby players coming through. And
You know, three would be better than four if those great players for the Ospreys stayed
yeah,
in Wales and played for the other clubs. But if they're leaving for Leicester and Gloucester, I mean, what's the point?
yeah, no, exactly.
I,
And Louis Rees-Zammit's been linked with going to France. I know he's at Bristol, so you're not getting him back to one of the regions. The only one who would
I
go
will
to.
say, like, the Ospreys are kind of a fun team if you know why they're called the Ospreys and you look at their logo. It's kind of the shape of Wales, right?
Yeah,
That's why they're called the
yeah.
Ospreys. But they play the Scarlets there. I'm picking the Scarlets to win that match. That game's at 12:30 p.m. on Friday. The Scarlets did not keep up that Champions Cup momentum, but I think they're going to win this one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to back the Scarlets on this one just because of what I saw against Cardiff. They were pretty impressive to close that out. And again, it's like we've said all season. They have way more talent than where they should be at this stage in the season. They should be much higher up with the talent they've got there. So yeah, I'm going to go Scarlets in this one.
Yeah, another big match on Friday. That's right. We got four matches that are going to be starting on Friday. One technically Saturday morning that we're gonna pick here. Um, I was pretty disappointed with how the Harlequins played last week. To get beat like they did after they just demolished Bayonne. Probably says more about Bayonne, but the Harlequins losing in Elan Stadium, in Twickenham last week. Now they're going to be going to Sale. I've got the Sharks in this one. That game's at 12:30 p.m. on Friday, East Coast.
Yeah, Harlequins for they can play the best rugby in the world and then get on a heater and beat anyone in any league, or they can just drop. I mean, that Bristol Bear match, the Bears just shredded them. I mean, the Bears had the bonus point by half time when Louis Samet scored the fourth try for them, and the try Ellis Genge. I can't stop watching Ellis Genge's try where the big boy gets a rumble out in the wing and he just goes all the way. There's
Big
two.
guys scoring tries. We love
This
it.
is it. There was two very good big boy tries this week. There's Tom Stewart of Ulster brushing off James Lowe. For anyone who hasn't seen it, he just flips Lowe off him. So,
For a
the big
podcast
boys
that
like
is an
to.
Ox Nietzsche appreciation podcast, we love big guys.
We do. We're big fans. We need Ox getting back out there for a bit of action. Yeah, that I think I think Sale take it. You know what they did in Clermont was very impressive too. But I think the Quins just for me at the moment just feel like a team that are kind of in limbo. 1 week brilliant, 1 week bad. And I still weirdly think they could beat the Stormers somehow later this season. So yeah.
All right, Japan Rugby League One. Philip, have you been waking up early to watch these matches, or are you catching the replays on FloRugby?
I'm catching them on the double monitor later in the day, Joe. I certainly am.
All right, so this is at 12:30 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, only 11:30 p.m. for me in Austin, but on the East Coast, 12:30 p.m. Bright and early Saturday morning. Uh, we have in English commentary. Remember, we get two of these Japan Rugby League One matches a week in English. The rest of the matches are going to be in Japanese. But Steelers versus the Verblets. Yeah, I'm saying that right. This is going to be
Yeah.
in the Kobe Memorial Stadium there in Japan. I'm picking the Steelers to win this one. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Blitz in this, but I obviously haven't seen the lineups yet, but I think for Blitz for me in this one. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we just picked four. We usually pick 10, so we got six more. So many matches we could pick on Saturday. Um, I'm gonna start with a match that was pretty close in the first round here, and now you got some bad news coming from Benetton. Now Monticello is still gonna be playing for Benetton here, but Zebri Parma did not get blown out
Mm.
in Treviso, and now they're going to be hosting Benetton here in this Italian derby. Uh, More interest in this Italian derby than we probably ever had because of
Yeah.
just how close the first match was. Um, I'm doing it. I'm taking Zebra Parma to pick up a win here. Uh, there we go. Philip knows this, but I was all about Zebra Parma winning matches because they didn't win a match for like 2 years at one point, and then they beat Munster last year. Sorry about
That
that,
never
Philip.
happened, Joe. No, no, that never. That's been
No,
pushed the
I'm
deepest,
taking
darkest
Zebra
part.
in this one.
Yeah, sorry, it's been pushed back in my memory. Yeah, I Zebre feels due, don't they? And it was close enough, and they've obviously got some good wins to start the season. So, and it's they played in Treviso last week, so it's in Parma this week. Yeah, I'm going to go Zebre too. Why not? Let's get the home team a win.
All right. That match is going to be at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. Okay, 30 minutes later, 1872 Cup, round two. Here we go. Philip, I got to say, Edinburgh is very confusing to me. They get shut out in their second Champions Cup
Mm.
match, right? Um, they were pretty close. Defensively, I think they're a pretty good club, but they scored two tries, but they didn't score in the last like 30 minutes of the match. And Glasgow, to me, is looking more and more like a team from the URC that we should be talking about as possibly a team that could win the Champions Cup. They're really good. They won at home, but that was not at Scotstown Stadium.
Mm.
So it's not like you
Is it
had that
Hampton?
there.
Yeah,
It was at
Hampton Park.
Hampden Park. Yeah. So I thought that Edinburgh did have chances there to take that match. Missed opportunity for them. I can't figure out Edinburgh. I can't figure out if they're a team that can really make some noise in the playoffs or a team that's going to drop off. They got to win this match at Hive Stadium though for me to get back on the bandwagon there. Can they do it? Because I don't think they can. I'm taking Glasgow in this one.
Yeah, no, I think the Warriors win this one. You know, it's a really bad Edinburgh performance when Darcy Graham gets 0 points on fantasy rugby, I was furious. I was banking on him getting loads of points for me this week. All his other points, he'd always gone over 20 points in on all season on Super Brew, and then he gets zero. What Glasgow do really well with opposition is that they take away opposition's biggest strength. They knew Edinburgh's biggest threats were out in the wings, didn't let them have any breathing space. So yeah, I think the Warriors have the wood in this one. I think they're going to physically dominate up front again. I think their back row is so crucial to that. I mean, Edinburgh have got plenty of good young back rowers coming through, but Glasgow have the established ones. So I think the Warriors take this. I've also been very impressed with Adam Hastings so far this season. Sione Tuipulotu is just so good. So good. So, yeah, I
Those
agree.
two guys are just on an absolute heater.
Yeah.
Tuiapo and Hastings the last couple of weeks. Man, it fires me up because you always want to see Wales rugby be good because of the history there. Me, look, I'm not Scottish. I don't know if I have that much Scottish heritage in me. No idea. I know that the ancestors are from Cork, Ireland,
There we
but I
go.
want to see Scotland be good.
Yeah, I don't want to see Scotland be good, but no, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I want all the tier one teams to be good, but not too good in 2027, please, Scotland. Let's let Ireland actually have some shot at a quarter final here. But yeah, no, I think Glasgow just squeezed it. I think they're just so good. I think Franco Smith has proven that really he should be the Scotland coach because he gets the best out of those players for sure.
All right, before we talk about the two huge matches that we've already touched on a little bit here in this podcast on Saturday, let's go down to Sunday. And you know what? This is really awesome. I don't know if the schedule makers in Prem did this on purpose, if they had a crystal ball, but you have the two best teams in Prem playing each other on Saturday, and you've got the next two best teams in the Prem playing on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Sandy Park, one of the great stadiums in all of the UK. So I expanded that out there. Exeter Chiefs versus the Leicester Tigers. Exeter was bad last year. They were 4-0-10 in the Prem, but they're kind of like Clermont in that Exeter's usually really good. So that was a surprise. They have snapped back. They look great. They're hosting the Tigers. Who do you got in this one?
Yeah, give me the Chiefs. They look too good this season. They're a really, really solid team. I don't think they're as good as Northampton or Bath, but I think they're right in that chasing back with Bristol.
I think there is a pretty big gap between these two teams and the top two teams. I was watching, Henry Slade make some pretty big kicks there. He's a great player. I'm 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 taking the Chiefs, although I do think Leicester might have not played their best teams in the Champions Cup, knowing with the matches coming up, they might have been looking at this match. But no, I think Sandy Park's too much for them.
Yeah, I agree. Sandy Park, it's such a difficult place to play because for anyone who's not been there, it's kind of elevated and it's open either side on each end of the stands, so the wind just filters through. It's a real mess. Henry Slade has it down to a T with kicking this. If it comes down to that, then the Chiefs will do it. So yeah, I think the Chiefs take this one.
I implore all of our teams that are partners with us here at Flow that if I ever say something like that again, you can clip it out and put it on your social media. Uh, if I say the Sandy Park was too much for Leicester and then Leicester comes out and wins, clip it out, throw it on your social, all of that.
Yeah. Don't do it if I do
I'll
it.
take
Only
the
if Joe
heat.
does. Only if Joe does. Not when Phil does.
Yes, yeah. Be kind to Philip, but you can throw it all on me.
I have to live
Okay.
here.
Yeah. Um, I think Toulon and USAP is a fun match. It's not the match we're going to pick here. The last match of the weekend is Toulouse versus La Rochelle. So on my three matches to watch in the top 14, I was listening to some country music today when I was writing it. Philip, segue here. Who's your favorite country music singer?
I do love Luke Combs. Morgan Wallen's right up there. Does Post Malone count at this stage? Is he a country singer as of yet, or what are we thinking?
I do not know, but I'm going to say no.
Okay, let's go with Luke Combs. I'll go with that. It'd be pretty generic. The country music's taken off massive this side of the Atlantic too, so there we are.
Well, I blended country music and French rugby in my three matches to watch. I threw a little Willie Nelson in there.
Love
where
it.
me and Poe instead of me and Paul. I threw some Toby Keith lines in there,
Oh, good
but here we
outfit.
go. This is my Toby Keith line for there was La Rochelle. They ain't as good as they once
I
was, but they're
I
as good
love
once
it.
as they ever was. They can beat Toulouse if they bring in their old school physical mentality. Can they win on the road? Probably not. I'm picking Toulouse to win the match. But look, just because La Rochelle's having a bad season, they're still La Rochelle. They still
Yeah.
got talent. They've still got one of the best coaches. They can pull off an upset. It would be the biggest upset of the round for any league, I think, if they did, just because of how good we think Toulouse is. But what's your take here?
Yeah, ironically, La Rochelle are at their best when they're throwing people over pool tables. So back to that Toby Keith analogy, I love it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, I think Toulouse, La Rochelle are getting a lot better. And we talked about Clermont earlier in terms of the squad demographic. Whilst La Rochelle pick a lot of older players, they've got a lot of very good young players. So don't be surprised if La Rochelle are a real force again next season. They were the front runners for Tomaso Menoncelo, in my understanding, for a long time. So Toulouse have taken another player from underneath them, having taken Georges-Henri Colombe and Teddy Thomas in recent times too. So I think Toulouse will win it because it is at the Stade Ernest Fallon, isn't it, down in Toulouse? So yeah, road wins are hard enough in the top 14. Road wins in Toulouse are impossible. So yeah, Toulouse will take this, but I do think La Rochelle are coming back as a force, and I think just in time for them to face Leinster again. So that'll be another interesting clash in the Champions Cup.
All right, going back in time, back to Saturday, we got two of the best matches starting within 15 minutes of each other. Okay, we'll start in chronological order here. 12:30 p.m. on Saturday at the recreational grounds, Bath Rugby, Northampton. I'm just gonna say right now, I'm picking Northampton to win this match.
Right. Yeah. 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 I could see it. I could see it. The only thing I would say is that the Rec is a very heavy pitch, and if we get quite a bit of rain, which I think we're expected to, it'll slow things down. How much that plays against the Saints, I don't know. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. I'm going to go with Bath because they've just shown me enough this season that they deserve to be favourites at home, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be really tight.
Okay, last match we're picking. It kicks off 15 minutes later. 12:45 p.m. on the East Coast. It's going to be in Thomond Park. That's in Limerick, Ireland. All right.
I thought I got away with it, Joe. I thought
I'm
we weren't
picking
going to talk
Munster.
about it. Thought we weren't going to talk about it. Okay. Um, I think we're going to sweep Leinster for the first time in quite some time this season. I think we're going to back to back.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, we beat them so comprehensively at Croke Park, and I know they're very different teams, but Ulster put it to them this weekend in at the Aviva. Leinster rolled off a very strong bench. That was the difference in the end, but it was still very tight. I think Munster with Tyke Byrne coming back, Craig Casey coming back, the likes of Thomas Ahern. There's a lot of very good players. Edwin Dogbo's really taken a step up now. Munster do have some key injuries, unfortunately, as do Leinster. But yeah, I think Munster are going to win at Thomond Park, and I think we're going to do it a bit different than we did at Croke Park earlier this season. I think it's going to be tighter than it was there, but I think Munster are going to win this one.
so much for the quick, short podcast. We've gone almost an hour here. All I can say is, you know who's winning. Those are I think we actually picked 11 matches. I don't know. I lost count. I was having so much fun.
Hey, you have to pick that match too, my friend. I can see you trying to just slide along next week. Who's winning, Munster
Look,
or Leinster?
I'm picking Leinster.
Actually, Joe, we don't need you to pick the match. Don't worry. Let's just end the podcast there. Oh, good.
All right. Okay, rugby fans, subscribe to Flow Rugby if you're in the United States. We've got all the great matches here. It's going to be a loaded round. We got matches starting at 9 a.m. in Austin, Texas, and the last match is at 11:30 on Friday. Man, we've got just a loaded schedule. Watch rugby, have fun. Reach out to us in social media. Give us your thoughts and opinions on things. Um, send all your bad comments to Philip if you want. No, you can tag me if you want to. Otherwise, Philip,
Your handle's Ryan
Have a
Ellis,
happy
isn't it?
holiday.
Oh yeah, happy holiday,
What?
Joe. I was going to
Yes.
say your handle
Reach
is
out.
Ryan Ellis. It's not Joe Harrington. You know, we go in.
Yeah. Reach out to my guy Ryan if you want. I don't even know if Ryan's on social media, but have a Merry Christmas. Watch rugby. Enjoy Boxing Day. Next week, more derby matches. All right, Philip.
Merry
Till
Christmas,
next
Joe.
time.
See you soon. Thanks,
Merry
Joe.
Christmas to you.